I am a beta, and my betrothed is a domineering alpha. He exhibits an overwhelming assertiveness, to the extent that he does not permit me to act independently. For instance, when I feel parched and wish to fetch myself some water, he furrows his sharp brows and states, "Have I granted you permission to move on your own?" He then proceeds to pour the water for me, accompanied by a plate of meticulously washed grapes. Finally, he gazes down at me from his elevated stance, his eyes reflecting a trifecta of aloofness, disdain, and indifference. His lips parting slightly as he issues a command. "Men are not to move about recklessly here. I shall go and sweep the floor." His domineering nature is simply too overwhelming. 01. My marriage to him was entirely accidental. One glance at our attributes makes it evident that he is an alpha, as typically alphas pursue omegas. However, that day was fraught with melodrama. My parents, who had always been indifferent towards me, suddenly summoned me to accompany them, taking my identification and household registration documents, under the pretense of securing financial assistance for college students. That I had naively believed that they had finally recognized their beta son and were experiencing a pang of conscience. Little did I know, they merely remembered they had a son they could offer as a gift. They intended to sell me off to their business associate, an elderly gentleman. Well, he was in his 40s, which might not strictly qualify as elderly, but he sported a beer belly, a receding hairline, and adorned himself with ostentatious gold chains and watches. My mother patted my shoulder, asserting that although he was not particularly attractive and was somewhat older, his lack of charm would ensure that no one would attempt to seduce him, and that his age would render him more considerate. As a fresh entrant to society, I was deemed most susceptible to deception. Following Mr. Chun, I would undoubtedly ascend to the status of a wealthy matron. I endured a prolonged twitch of my lips before feigning the need to use the restroom, and in the moment of their distraction, I bolted. Just as I reached the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I was abruptly seized by the collar. Assuming that my pursuers had set a trap, I struggled fiercely. "Man, I advise you not to move recklessly." My flailing limbs froze at this statement, a powerful urge compelling me to halt and glance at the individual who could utter such a serious remark. To my astonishment, he was rather handsome, with striking brows and bright eyes, of shaped physique suggesting he could easily send me flying with a single punch. To my surprise, I recognized him as a wealthy alpha residing in the Villa district across the street from my home. "You," he began, but upon noticing the identification and household registration documents in my grasp, he chuckled lightly, a hint of triumph in his laughter. "Are you that eager?" Ah! Before I could process this, I found myself being pulled into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Coincidentally, my parents and Mr. Chun had just discovered my escape and were in hot pursuit. With my head bowed, I pressed closely against him, brushing past my would-be captors. Just as I began to feel a sense of relief, he ushered me into the Civil Affairs Bureau, where he presented my identification and household registration and facilitated our marriage. I was astonished and bewildered, pondered deeply. Wasn't there supposed to be a premarital examination? But of course, this is the realm of fiction, where such considerations are inconsequential. Shifting my perspective, we were both entering into a hasty union, and at least this man was quite handsome. Moreover, his attire exuded an air of affluence, suggesting he was not impoverished. Perhaps it was best to marry first, thereby escaping the fate of being delivered to an older man, and then contemplate my next steps. 02. The thought was quite commendable. I then cast a glance at his identification card, where his name was neatly inscribed, Wang Ming. Well, it seemed rather ordinary. A quick search revealed that he was a CEO, Mr. Wang. Oddly enough, something felt amiss. He explained that his family was pressuring him to maintain a facade of a wife, so he hastily secured a marriage license from the Civil Affairs Bureau. He handed me a card containing 1 million, instructing me to spend it while he went on a business trip. Yes, on my first day of marriage, I found myself residing in a lavish 300-square-meter villa, clutching a card worth 1 million, utterly alone in the vast emptiness. Almost couldn't help but chuckle. I quickly texted my family to inform them of my marriage, and then canceled my old phone number to avoid a barrage of calls from my parents. I informed a few close friends about my new number. Then, I pondered whether this fellow had married me out of financial desperation, seeking a hapless companion to share his plight. Yet, no matter how I searched, the Wang Group appeared to be flourishing and on the verge of entering the Fortune Global 500. Moreover, I had seen him several times, and he always returned late. Clearly a diligent and passionate CEO. It still felt somewhat peculiar. However, considering this was the realm of fiction, it seemed less strange. That night, the landline rang. Upon answering, I was met with Mr. Wang's cold voice. "Did you not spend a single penny today? Huh? I told you, spend freely with that card. Do not defy me." I was momentarily stunned, reflecting on the situation. Oh, I had been so preoccupied that I forgot about the card he had given me. He could see the expenditures on that card and noticed I had not spent a dime. He perceived my restraint as defiance and had called to urge me to spend. All right, I will spend tomorrow. Ha, now that's obedient. Truly a domineering CEO indeed. 03. After a month of business travel, he finally returned and announced his intention to take me to a soiree, introducing me to high society. Still somewhat dazed, I was whisked away once more. Upon arriving at the event, he made no effort to introduce me to anyone. Instead, he instructed me to eat and explore at my leisure. Blinking in surprise, he elaborated, "You need not engage in the intrigues." Thus, he had brought me solely to partake in the banquet. He was rather amiable. I sampled dishes from one end to the other, eventually reaching the balcony. There, I decided to take a moment to digest. This decision proved pivotal, as I overheard someone on the balcony sneering, "The weather is turning. It's time for the Wong family to face bankruptcy." I realized the ordinariness of my husband's name was not a mere coincidence. We were merely pawns in a larger game. I feigned nonchalance as I dashed back inside to find him, carefully choosing my words to convey that there might be a threat against him. He paused at my words, his brow furrowing in concern. I tugged at him, "Transfer some money to me. Devise a way to ensure that even if you go bankrupt, those funds remain untouchable." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you worried I cannot provide for you?" "Perhaps. Woman, do not question my capabilities." As he spoke, he texted his secretary, instructing her to promptly transfer a portion of his assets to me, citing my penchant for wealth. "Do not worry. Aside from me, no one would dare to harm you," he assured me. The next day, he declared bankruptcy. 04. It was rather unexpected. The male lead truly lived up to his role, executing matters with remarkable efficiency. Yesterday, he was met with derision. Today, the deed was accomplished. Mr. Wong wore a stoic expression, gazing skyward at a 45-degree angle, his eyes reflecting a mixture of reluctance, desolation, and resolute determination. I patted his shoulder, urging him to pack his belongings before we moved on. Yes, the house was gone. My expansive villa had been seized. However, the bank permitted us to take a few personal items. I guided him toward the bedroom, reminding him to gather the smaller, valuable items to exchange for cash. Mr. Wong was a diligent learner, obediently following my directive, filling an entire suitcase with golden tie clips, silver tie clips, diamond cufflinks, and gemstone cufflinks, leaving behind a single piece of clothing. I contemplated the necessity of packing a change of clothes. Thus, I adorned my attire with the golden, silver, and gem-encrusted accessories, neatly folding my clothes before placing them in the suitcase. When he handed me the card, encouraging me to spend freely, I also acquired a few frivolous trinkets to take along for trade. Consequently, as we departed the villa, after tallying our possessions, we discovered that the contents of the suitcase were sufficient for an ordinary person to squander over 3 lifetimes. Not to mention the billions he had discreetly transferred to that untraceable card yesterday. Let us purchase a modest home. While a furnished one may be costly, securing a place to land is paramount, and then we can rise again. I articulated my plans while dragging the suitcase behind me. "Woman, I will not permit you to do that." Finally unable to restrain himself, he snatched the suitcase from my grasp, insisting on carrying 2 suitcases and 2 bags alone. "I understand my current predicament. Rest assured, after we liquidate these items, the money will be yours." "Woman, I have promised not to let you suffer," he declared earnestly. My lips twitched uncontrollably as I forcefully reclaimed one of the bags from him. "You know I have a penchant for wealth." "Indeed. Thus, if you rise again, I shall acquire even more." "True. Therefore, no divorce. You shall strive diligently, and carry the suitcase for me. Do not exhaust yourself." "No." He strode forward, cold, proud, and unyielding, bearing his burdens resolutely. 05. We secured a modest apartment of over 100 square meters and temporarily settled in. Determined to embark on a new entrepreneurial venture, we refrained from extravagant spending, even with a fortune at our disposal. The idea of hiring a housekeeper could wait until our venture succeeded. For now, we would manage ourselves, ensuring our needs were met. Yet, he was exceedingly domineering. Upon entering our new home, he established rules. He would sweep the floors, mop, prepare meals, and wash the dishes. Essentially, he would handle all household chores, and I was forbidden from lifting a finger. I did not question his intentions. Rather, I was curious and asked him if such a prominent CEO truly knew how to cook. He cornered me, pushing me against the wall, his presence imposing. He said, "Do not doubt me, understand?" At dinner, I quickly realized he genuinely could not cook. He could not even select the ingredients. Ultimately, I had to choose everything. His pride was affronted by my selections, and he insisted on handling the cooking himself, refusing to let me intervene. I had no desire to interfere, but when I witnessed him admonishing the knife, "Move on your own. Do not compel me to take action," I could hardly suppress my laughter. After much coaxing, I finally persuaded him to allow me to prepare dinner. I could only whip up a few simple home-cooked dishes, assuming someone accustomed to gourmet cuisine would find them lacking. To my surprise, he simply ate, then looked at me earnestly. "Well done, you have successfully captured my interest, woman." I was nearly able to suppress the goosebumps that threatened to surface. "If you enjoyed it, I might as well take on the cooking from now on." This statement seemed to provoke him. Immediately after dinner, he rushed to wash the dishes and pots, denying me any opportunity to assist. He swept the floor and even washed and sliced an apple, informing me with a hint of chilly amusement that the next apple would certainly be peeled. Today, he simply had yet to grasp the art of peeling. 06. Indeed, it took merely a day for him to master the art of cooking. The following morning, when I was summoned for breakfast, I beheld a golden fried egg, a slice of toasted bread, and a warm cup of milk. He sat across from me, newspaper in hand, wearing a smug expression that seemed to convey a sense of its nothing special. I felt compelled to commend him, despite his domineering nature. However, I sensed that his feigned engrossment in the newspaper was merely a ruse, an invitation for praise. Under his watchful gaze, I took a bite of the egg, a bite of the bread, and sipped the milk, then exclaimed with wide eyes, "Delicious." His lips indeed curled into a smile. This young man possesses a certain understanding. After relishing breakfast, he leisurely finished his portion and informed me that he would be heading out to liquidate the items we had brought and ponder over entrepreneurial ventures. I nodded, expressing my intention to explore opportunities for earning. Upon hearing this, he furrowed his brow, as was predictable. He was about to assert that I should not be left wanting. Before he could voice his concern, I interjected, explaining that his absence made the house rather dull, and I wished to occupy myself, lest I dwell too much on him. His expression softened slightly at my words, and he declared, "Once my career stabilizes, I, Wang Ming, assure you that I shall fulfill any of your desires." "I believe you," I replied, stroking his hair affectionately. Thus, he ventured forth in search of entrepreneurial prospects while I set out to reconnect with former partners. When he bestowed upon me that card, he urged me to spend freely. Initially hesitant, I refrained from indulgence until he persistently called to encourage me. I began to shop, but after purchasing an array of inconsequential trinkets, I felt remorse for my extravagance. Consequently, I turned my attention to investing in my partners. After all, spending was inevitable, and as long as he was aware that I had funds to utilize, he was satisfied. With wealth at my disposal, I sought professional advice to assess risks, engaged a lawyer, and drafted contracts, thus proudly becoming one of the major shareholders in the partnership. I confess I was indeed prepared, ready for any eventuality should this fellow suddenly encounter a highly compatible individual and return to seek a divorce, ensuring I would not walk away empty-handed. Regardless, I had foresight. That said, I must admit that Wang Ming is quite the eccentric. In all my years, I have never encountered someone quite like him. 07. Wang Ming's ability to learn is astonishing. In just a day or two, his speed at slicing potatoes surpassed mine, achieving a uniformity in thickness that I could not match. As I peeled garlic beside him, I couldn't help but agree with the adage. A focused man is undeniably attractive, be it in work or in the kitchen preparing meals for me. "You have taken advantage of my affection far too much," he remarked, referring to my presence in the kitchen, peeling garlic and washing potatoes. "This space is about to embrace the flames of cooking. Now off you go." He insisted I leave to amuse myself while he commenced his culinary endeavors. I nodded, only to instinctively reach for a bowl and chopsticks. He shot me a disapproving look, followed by a scoff. I understood. Tomorrow, those bowls would be placed on the table by a benevolent hand before I could intervene. This young man is unexpectedly perceptive. Thus, the days passed, and our second month of marriage was far more heartwarming than I had anticipated. At the month's end, he handed me a card, saying, "Spend as you wish." "How much did you keep for yourself?" I inquired. "Do not pry into matters that do not concern you," he replied haughtily. Clearly, he had not reserved much for himself. I contemplated returning the card, assuring him that my finances were ample. However, his demeanor darkened. "Are you truly so unwilling to accept everything I offer you? Do not overthink." I chuckled. "When you fed me that freshly cut cantaloupe earlier, did I not accept it? Indeed. And during our meal, when you piled my bowl high with food, did I not consume it all? Yes. Do not let your imagination run wild, darling. Unable to resist, I ruffled his hair playfully, likening him to a foolish dog, one that feels compelled to present offerings to its owner, whose refusal would only lead to sorrow. 08. His career appeared to be gradually finding its footing, leading him to become increasingly busy. In the mornings, I would typically only encounter the breakfast he had prepared before he departed. Occasionally, he would rush back for lunch, or else provide me with a substantial sum to spend as I pleased. He would return in the evening to cook, and after we dined together, he might receive a call that whisked him away once more. Our joyous weekends were becoming scarce. Now, he was so occupied that he could only text me his quotes, maintaining his relentless drive. I took it upon myself to search for the identity of the person who had, while swirling a glass of red wine, coldly proclaimed, "The weather has turned. It is time for the Wong family to face bankruptcy." To my astonishment, I discovered that this individual was of the highest caliber, belonging to an illustrious family, wielding immense influence, with the power to shake the financial world at a mere stomp of his foot. I gazed at Wang Ming, who was still diligently working at his desk upon returning home, aware that facing such a formidable opponent would demand considerable effort to regain his standing. He must have sensed my scrutiny, for I noticed him subtly straighten his already erect posture. I couldn't help but stifle a laugh. How could such an imposing figure be so endearing? 09. 6 months into our marriage, I finally encountered my parents. It was a mere coincidence. I had ventured out to purchase some fruit, contemplating how much to buy for an afternoon snack. Should I buy less, finish it quickly, and avoid the displeasure of Wang Ming discovering my encroachment upon his fruit-washing duties? Or should I buy more, secretly indulge in some, and pretend I had just returned with the remainder for him to enjoy washing? We could then cozy up on the sofa, sharing fruit and discussing the amusing events of the day. I found this plan quite agreeable. Just as I was about to pay, however, I spotted my parents. Clearly, they had noticed me as well. My instinct was to flee, but it was too late. They were too close. They had brought my cousin along, and I realized I could not escape his watchful eye. I was loath to reveal the location of my cozy abode. Thus, I feigned a desire to engage in pleasant conversation and allowed myself to be drawn to a nearby CAF. To be frank, my parents had always been relatively kind to me. They were preoccupied with work, while I was engrossed in my studies. We were distant relatives. This estrangement only deepened when my cousin's results indicated he was exceptionally gifted. The union of their lineage had produced a child with a greater than 90% chance of success, akin to a windfall. The entire family had invested their hopes in him. If he were to secure a position with a prominent partner, it would elevate the entire family. They were nearly besotted, pouring all their resources and affection into my cousin. By that time, I had completed my college entrance exams and had initially shared in their excitement. However, that enthusiasm shattered when my parents informed me they would not cover my college tuition or living expenses, as they needed to allocate funds for my cousin's skincare regimen. I had no desire to stake my future on the whims of my cousin's fortune. Even if he were to find success with a powerful partner, what portion of that would I receive? Felt too nebulous, and I was unwilling to gamble. I yearned for an education, for a future grounded in solid reality. I performed admirably in the college entrance examination and secured admission to a commendable university, accompanied by a substantial scholarship. Coupled with my part-time job, my university life has been quite pleasant. However, fate took a turn when the company I interned with in my senior year went bankrupt, compelling me to seek employment anew. Just as I was navigating this tumultuous phase, my parents expressed their intention to sell me off. This was prompted by my cousin's insatiable desire for luxury goods and exquisite adornments, which he believed would elevate his status in the eyes of the elite. In a moment of desperation, I fled and subsequently encountered Mr. Wang. I have grown fond of my married life and wish for no one to disrupt this tranquility. Absolutely no one. My parents, with tears streaming down their faces, lamented the financial struggles of our household and the hardships they endured while raising me. My cousin, ever the opportunist, chimed in with disdainful snorts and cold glares, as though I were a heartless ingrate. They insisted that Mr. Wang held a deep affection for me and was eagerly awaiting my return to marry him. I lowered my gaze and replied, "I fear that is not possible." My refusal incited their fury, leading them to accuse me of ingratitude and selfishness. "Oh, how I wish I could return to you, but I am already married." I innocently blinked, retrieving my phone to display the news from that time. After I fled, I had a revelation. I initially sought a wealthier benefactor to assist the family. The news article was official and highly credible. Their fleeting joy was quickly overshadowed by my sigh as I switched to another article. Who would have thought that mere days after marrying, I would face bankruptcy and owe substantial debts? He threatened me, saying if I dared to divorce him, he would harm me, and I, unable to defend myself, could only sigh. I feigned wiping away non-existent tears and grasped my mother's hand. Mother, could you lend me 50,000? If Mr. Wang makes a comeback, I shall be wealthy once more. They had come seeking financial assistance, so how could they possibly lend me money? My cousin expressed skepticism regarding my words, as I appeared neither disheveled nor destitute. I explained that the wealthy often cling to their pride, suffering in silence even in poverty. If I were to deceive them, I surely could not fabricate a news article for an official financial publication. After a protracted period of appeasing Mr. Wang, my ability to weave tales had significantly improved, and through a series of fabrications, I ultimately convinced them of my dire financial straits. They offered me nothing, attributing my plight to karma, insisting that had I not fled, I would be enjoying a life of luxury rather than wallowing in poverty. They admonished me that once my cousin ascended the social ladder, I would no longer be worthy of their generosity. I pretended to wipe away tears, and with an air of arrogance, they departed, as if they had completed a monumental leap in social status while I, unwilling to accompany them, was left to languish in the mire. It is indeed peculiar how unactualized power could lead parents to abandon their own child. As you are aware, I am a person who cannot be marked. I possess no so-called pheromones and cannot even detect them. Had I the ability, I would never have stepped foot in my home to confront an irritable individual in a sensitive phase. Yet, lacking this perception, I hummed a tune as I carried fruits and opened the door, only to be greeted by a pair of polished shoes at the threshold. Struck me as odd. For Mr. Wang, a diligent CEO, typically communicated with me via WeChat or text messages during work hours and seldom returned home this early. I assumed he must have left some documents behind and gave it little thought. Upon entering, I called out to him, but he did not respond. I initially thought he might have retreated to his study or was on a call. After placing the fruits on the table, I intended to peruse a book from the shelf, relishing this blissful afternoon devoid of work. However, as I lifted my gaze, I spotted Mr. Wang nestled in the corner of the sofa, clutching a cushion, his eyes glistening with an expression of pitiable sorrow directed at me. For a moment, I wondered if he had lost his mind, as he appeared to be on the verge of tears. This demeanor was wholly uncharacteristic of him. He should have been sitting upright with a sardonic smile, not resembling a child about to cry. Concerned, I approached him, intending to pat his head to ascertain whether he was merely dazed or unwell. To my surprise, as I drew near, he abruptly discarded the cushion with a cold and detached demeanor, seized my wrist, and pulled me into his embrace, burying his head in the crook of my neck. This series of actions unfolded so swiftly that I found myself ensnared, unable to move. I froze momentarily, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. After a brief contemplation, I tentatively patted his back, as one might soothe a distressed child. What troubles you? Is someone causing you distress? He remained silent, merely nuzzling my neck, and then I felt warm tears cascading down, trickling away. He was crying. He was crying? He was crying. My home, once a bastion of pride and indulgence, now bore witness to Mr. Wang's tears. This revelation sent alarm bells ringing in my mind. I tentatively patted his shoulder, attempting to comfort him as one would a child. Is that person still pursuing you? Do they wish to see you face ruin again? No, he replied sullenly. Is it an investment issue? No. Then what is the matter? I am so foolish, truly foolish, he lamented, tears streaming down. I was so consumed with joy that I neglected to address your family's situation. As I listened to his choked sobs, my mind raced to piece together the situation. He had been elated by our marriage at the Civil Affairs Bureau and had become so jubilant that he momentarily lost sight of the pressing matters concerning my family. In his eagerness to present himself beautifully for our reunion and to take me out to social gatherings, he had forgotten the mounting issues at home. He had transformed from a bumbling puppy into a flamboyant peacock. It was somewhat amusing, yet also touching, and left me with a hint of confusion. How did he know my family had come to trouble me today? Before I could voice my bewilderment, he interrupted my thoughts with his tearful declarations. You must not love me anymore. I know it. You do not love me anymore because I am too foolish. I cast aside all my tumultuous thoughts and patiently reassured this forlorn puppy. I do not love you any less. In fact, I adore you. You are deceiving me. No, I truly adore you. Really? He looked up at me with hopeful eyes, still red and glistening. Then what do you love about me? Your silly demeanor, your kindness towards me, is enough for me to cherish you. I am not one for flattery, so I spoke sincerely. He nuzzled into my neck once more, his soft, furry head tickling me, prompting me to gently push him away. All right, do not be disheartened. Okay? He held me tightly, taking several deep breaths as if trying to absorb my essence. I am a person who cannot emit pheromones, so I simply conveyed this to him. He then proposed, "Then let my pheromones linger on you, shall we?" Typically a domineering figure, cold and ruthless. He had suddenly transformed into a pitiful puppy, leaving me momentarily disarmed by this unexpected stratagem. It was impossible to find it in my heart to refuse him. How infuriating! This cunning individual, as is widely known, I am someone who cannot be marked. This has led to the curious outcome that he nibbles on the nape of my neck, followed by tender kisses and affectionate licks. However, the flavor began to wane shortly after, and he couldn't resist the urge to take another bite. With his shimmering eyes gazing at me, filled with an expression of pitiful longing, my refusal lodged in my throat, and he resumed nibbling. Of course, my denial changed nothing. In the latter half of the night, when I hoarsely told him to leave, it was as if he suddenly became unable to comprehend human speech, continuing to munch away. When I scolded him harshly, he cunningly leaned in to kiss me, preventing me from continuing my tirade. That wretched creature, fully aware of his reproductive cavity's regression, still sweet-talked me, employing every trick in the book to coax my compliance with a plethora of implausible assurances. If I were to believe him, I would be nothing short of a fool. Naturally, if I withheld cooperation, Mr. Wong possessed ways to compel me. Alas, speaking too much only brings tears. Upon awakening, it was already afternoon. As I rose from the bed, I felt as if I had been transported to another realm. Yesterday, I had come to realize that I was in a vulnerable phase, as discussed in our physiology class. During this period, one may become irritable, anxious, and prone to self-doubt or paranoia. All emotions are magnified: joy, sorrow, concern, and grief. It is unfortunate that I lacked pheromones during this time, as they could provide significant comfort. The realization of my susceptibility came too late, already cradled in bed. Had others endured this phase? Curiosity piqued. I stretched my back and prepared to pour myself a glass of water to soothe my throat, which was sore from excessive talking yesterday. As I stepped out, I spotted Mr. Wong sneaking around. Perhaps fearing he would wake me, he tiptoed about as if he were a thief in his own home. Upon hearing the commotion and turning to see me, he was startled and nearly dropped what he was holding. My keen eyesight quickly discerned that it was a flamboyant cake. Although it seemed most men do not favor sweets, I rather enjoyed them. Observing his rolled-up sleeves, the flour dusting his arms, and the apron adorning him, I had reason to suspect that he had baked this cake himself. After a moment of panic, he set the cake down and hurried to pour me some water. Even at this moment, he maintained his persona, lifting his chin with pride and proclaiming, "Drink this water and be my man." I took the cup from his hands and gulped it down, feeling some relief for my sore throat. He swiftly reclaimed the cup and poured me another, stating, "Man, you shall not pour your own water. I will not allow it." He still felt guilty about yesterday's events. Today, when he recited his usual domineering lines, the fervor was notably absent. His eyes darted around, observing my expressions. As I walked toward the sofa, he followed suit. Upon my sitting down, he hesitated before feigning a preference for standing. I beckoned him to sit, and only then did he theatrically adopt a posture of satisfying you, my man, and obediently took a seat. I still held the water, but at that moment, I fancied I should be holding a cup of tea, dressed more formally, ready to interrogate this sheepish Mr. Wong. "Let us talk," I initiated. "What about?" he inquired cautiously. I flashed a standard smile, revealing my 8 teeth, and stated, "Let us discuss everything you mentioned yesterday." First, I interrogated him about how he learned I had been abducted for marriage. He hesitated, stammering, attempting to brush it off with a line about how men shouldn't ask what they shouldn't, claiming that knowing too much would be detrimental to me. However, my stance was unwavering. He reluctantly admitted to having someone observe my movements. "Why?" I pressed. His cheeks flushed adorably as he responded, "Because, my man, you have captured my heart, and I must ensure its safety." "Since when?" I queried, bewildered and confused. "Let us discuss it later. Now." He looked pitiful, as if I were bullying him, completely devoid of his usual domineering demeanor. He asked if I remembered the little boy I met a decade ago. I paused, contemplating whether I had unwittingly stepped into a redemption narrative. Then he continued, mentioning the boy who was willing to pay $500 an hour for companionship. "Ah, I couldn't forget. Such a generous fool would be difficult to find." "That little boy was you?" "Indeed," he affirmed, meeting my gaze before nonchalantly adding, "Don't think you can play hard to get, my man. You looked quite different back then and now," I remarked thoughtfully. The boy who once paid too much was short and gloomy, resembling a mushroom in a corner. Now, the once gullible Mr. Wang stood tall, ready to recite his domineering lines like a foolish dog. The contrast was striking. In that moment, my first reaction was to wonder if he had been swindled back then, only to awaken years later and seek retribution from me. My second thought was that the first reaction was undoubtedly wrong. Who exacts penance in such a manner? The victim serving tea and offering their salary card. Yet, I had indeed been somewhat excessive back then, not just providing companionship but also sharing a bed. Let me clarify. It was merely innocent sleep under the covers. Indeed, I charged $500 an hour even for sleeping. This was not my fault. My parents had stated that upon entering university, I was an adult responsible for my own tuition and living expenses. I simply wished to save a bit of money to avoid the burden of unaffordable education. Could it be that you liked me even then? I inquired. He nodded with an air of pride. Oh, so you liked me back then. His reaction was one of shock, and soon enough, I noticed him blushing again. I couldn't be blamed for prying. He had maintained a domineering facade since our marriage, showering me with gifts, yet had never once admitted his feelings. My curiosity compelled me to tease him. He confessed that he had never encountered anyone who treated him with such kindness. You, my man, were the one who first stirred my interest, he stated. I know you were kind to me for the sake of money. If I give you all my money, will you continue to treat me well? Then, feeling he had not been domineering enough, he added, do not defy me, my man. Yet, upon realizing he sounded too commanding, he quickly remedied it with, if you must defy me, please inform me in advance. But this made him feel too lenient, so he added, if you wish to play hard to get, I shall oblige. I gazed at him, realizing he was, indeed, rather foolish. I wondered how someone so simple could manage a company so well. Perhaps all his intelligence was devoted to business management. What would you do if I truly ran away with your money? I asked playfully. Mr. Wang appeared momentarily stunned before flashing a charming smile. I would not grant you the opportunity to escape, my man. And if I did, then I would dig 3 feet into the ground to find you. And then, lock me up? I continued my inquiry, resting my chin on my hand. He fell silent, frowning in contemplation for a moment. I would give you a chance. And if I ran again? Mr. Wang fixed his gaze upon me. Are you contemplating escape? Which is why you ask. Not at all, I replied, offering a sincere smile. I read a few novels that suggested if one were to flee, they would be captured and locked away. I was merely curious about your course of action. Yes, to capture you back. His eyes were of a pure black, and when gazed upon for too long, they instilled a sense of unease. As his hand pressed against my shoulder, an instinctive urge to evade arose within me. Lock you away, break your legs so that you can remain by my side. Do you think I would utter such words? Suddenly, he tilted his head, the earlier oppressive atmosphere dissipating entirely. I would never harm you. President Wang lifted his chin with a certain pride, declaring, only a worthless man would fail to keep his beloved. I sat before him, earnestly regarding this adorably domineering figure. Though it may wound your pride, the truth is, I was simply in need of money back then. I felt an overwhelming guilt, as if I had deceived him regarding my true feelings. Even if revealing this might tarnish my image, I could not remain silent. I am aware, President Wang replied with a smile. I know everything you have done. Damn it, this was utterly distracting. I wanted to say more, but he boldly proclaimed, I know you thought I was merely a fool, but I don't mind. I simply like you. Why? I felt as if I was shattering the mood, yet I could hardly believe it. I could not trust that someone would fall for me due to such trivial kindness, especially when it was intertwined with monetary considerations. Because, he said, his gaze wandering, after observing you, I realized you are infuriatingly to my taste. It dawned on me suddenly, you've been following me for quite some time, haven't you? President Wang fell silent, avoiding my eyes, and began to coldly chuckle. Man, knowing too much is not a blessing. You've had someone tailing me, so you knew my family intended to sell me off, which allowed you to arrive just in time to drag me into marriage. At that moment, the sun shone brightly outside, accompanied by a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves. He flashed a smile that was neither cold nor slightly aloof. A perceptive partner deserves a reward. As I pondered what he might bestow upon me, he leaned in and placed a kiss upon my forehead. I know this is wrong, but I cannot help myself. He was so close that my heart raced uncontrollably, as if I might drown in the depths of his gaze. Are you willing to allow me to atone with the rest of my life? I am willing. Do you remember the one who brought President Wang to ruin? That Mr. Chu has now become a useless man. His wife has left him. This was initially of no concern to me, yet he barged into my home, demanding to know if I had any idea where his wife had gone. How could I possibly know? A crowd stood before me, making me feel both weak and small. Your wife is missing. Why are you looking for me? I glanced at the clock before hastily returning my gaze. The cold chuckle from him reminded me of President Wang. Do all domineering men share this laugh? He then tossed a file folder at me. Upon opening it, I found several photographs of a striking individual speaking with my cousin. Furthermore, there were images of this attractive person leaving with my cousin. Given that my cousin was an individual who steadfastly rejected romance and Mr. Chu likely did not appreciate such traits, it seemed his wife had not eloped with my cousin. She had merely fled. Oh no, my cousin couldn't possibly be the villainous male counterpart. Could he? What a disaster. While I was entangled with the pitiful President Wang, my cousin was playing the role of the malicious male lead assisting the protagonist's escape. Our family truly had a knack for self-destruction. I returned the photos to the folder. Mr. Chu, with your vast connections, you should easily uncover that my marriage to President Wang stemmed from a familial rift. I truly have no knowledge of their whereabouts. To be frank, Mr. Chu appeared increasingly agitated, likely due to an impending emotional crisis. During this volatile emotional period, especially with a spouse gone, it was hardly surprising that he would recklessly seek me out, desperately wanting to find his beloved. His misfortune mirrored my own. I was simply at home when suddenly, the door was torn from its hinges. I wondered if they would help me repair it before leaving. Under their coercion, I dialed my cousin's number. After 3 attempts, the third call connected. Cousin, are you busy? I inquired. No money, go away, came the curt reply. It appeared he assumed I was seeking a loan. This isn't about borrowing money. It's an opportunity for you. I endeavored to sound casual. President Wang is on the verge of a resurgence. Old collaborators have contacted us, providing an invitation to an upcoming gathering. There was a brief silence on the other end before he replied. I'm busy. What a pity, I sighed, sensing Mr. Chu's temper flaring as the veins on his hand stood out, threatening to shatter the marble corner of the table. I summoned all my acting skills to feign regret, saying, I heard there will be several influential figures from the city attending. I know you're still upset with me over the elopement, but I was simply overwhelmed. Now I've come to realize that as a mere commoner, I can't make waves. I might as well contribute something to my family. You have every right to resent me. I've come to understand that. After another moment of silence, my cousin's voice commanded me to deliver the invitation. Splendid. Splendid. I exhaled in relief, adding for caution sometimes, could you please convey my apologies to my parents? The call ended abruptly, leaving me unprepared with the words I had intended to express. As I set down the phone, Mr. Chu seized me. He did not trust me or President Wang and intended to take me hostage. I felt like a helpless chick being carried away, pitifully saying, when President Wang returns home and finds me missing, he will be quite anxious. I'll just leave a note. Mr. Chu was unyielding, whisking me away without allowing me to leave anything behind. Perhaps it was because his wife had just fled and he couldn't bear to witness our affectionate bond. In Mr. Chu's car, I ultimately succumbed to my curiosity and asked if his wife was a promiscuous woman. If she were, judging by Mr. Chu's temperament, he would have likely bound her with a mark or a child, indicating that he had no such reservations. He snorted in response, saying, that will be the case in the future. That is illegal, I retorted. The removal and installation of glands are unlawful, yet this man seemed indifferent to such matters. Noting that he had not cast me out, I decided to adopt the role of a concerned friend. I believe I hold considerable sway in matters of love. Just look at the affection shared between myself and President Wang. If looks could kill, I would likely be deceased by now. However, he could not outright eliminate me, as I was still of use as leverage. Yet once this affair concluded, who could say what might happen? There are indeed various types of love. Some wish to marry a noble, while others seek a nurturing partner or even believe that any of these could suffice. I mused, is your beloved one of the latter? He did not object. That poses a challenge, I sighed. He perceives himself as the pillar of the family, yet you insist he assume the role of a homemaker. He need not earn. Mr. Chu had consistently maintained a stern demeanor toward me, yet I remained unfazed, believing that if this situation could be resolved amicably, it would be a commendable deed. But he desires to, I smiled, you love him, which means you cherish every aspect of him, including his wish for independence. If you compel him to change, will he still be the one you cherish? If you come to regret it, where will you go to retrieve him? If you insist on saying you dislike this particular trait, you may seek someone else, someone who is content to stay at home, and then everyone would be happy. I rambled on extensively, and finally he articulated, he is who he is, irreplaceable. So you love every facet of him. I observed that he seemed to absorb this, and wisely prepared to conclude, you cannot prune a tree that flourishes freely into a bonsai and then expect it to revert to its original form. Do not wait until that moment to regret. Mr. Chu remained silent for an extended period before asking me as we exited the vehicle. He must run. Without breaking his legs, what else can I do? Inquire why he feels the need to flee. I followed him out. Respect and understanding are essential courses in the curriculum of love. He does not like me. Why does he not like you? At that moment, a surge of people from the car behind us encircled me. Mr. Chu did not continue the conversation but instead motioned for me to accompany him to his office. I understood. This lad feared embarrassment. The life coach, Xiao Ji, was now in session. I felt confident I could guide him towards success, transforming despair into beauty. I recounted to Mr. Chu our love story, illustrating how we transitioned from arranged marriage to genuine affection. People are inevitably moved by sincerity, I concluded. Yet, from the outset, this relationship was something I coerced, and you still do not wish to let go. I sat on the plush sofa, resembling a psychological counselor. Are you afraid that if you do not pursue him, he will forever regard you as merely a brother? Perhaps a touch of green tea? I offered a series of suggestions and thoughtfully shared my cherished novels, encouraging him to take some time to read. Ultimately, he posed the question, what if he still refuses? Then let him go, I replied earnestly, uncertain if my words resonated with him. Through my assistance, he managed to apprehend my cousin, subsequently locating his beloved. He did not intend to harm anyone. I pleaded with Mr. Chu before he took action. He merely sought a shortcut. A suitable punishment would suffice, but please, do not be too harsh. Mr. Chu shot me a glance. Are you advocating for him? I simply believe his transgressions do not warrant death. I shrugged. Although our relationship is strained, it was once amicable. In light of my earnest counsel, consider it a way to repay my parents' nurturing and extend the last remnants of familial affection. That is acceptable. I interceded, yet whether Mr. Chu would honor his word was beyond my purview. His failure to keep his promises would not invite retribution from me. My concern lay with my dear Wang, who must be beside himself with worry. Wang scrutinized me from head to toe, only relaxing once he confirmed my well-being, before glaring fiercely at the opposing party. I endeavored to smooth ruffled feathers, seeking a harmonious resolution for all involved. If he had a tail, it would undoubtedly be drooping. He felt he had not protected me adequately. I embraced him, showering him with affection, assuring him he had already done so much for me. If I were to encounter danger, you would undoubtedly seek vengeance for me. That is sufficient. I simply do not wish to see you in peril. His voice was heavy. As a man, I cannot afford to lose you. Is this really the time for such a tone? I am accustomed to it. I gently stroked his head. Are you striving to become successful, ensuring no one can ever bully me again? Indeed. But in doing so, you will be exceedingly busy, with little time left for me. I cradled his face. And I will worry for your health. You should act within your means. If it becomes too burdensome, perhaps I could enlist Mr. Chu's assistance? You are forbidden from seeking him. All right, I promise not to. Eventually, we reached a consensus. He would focus on his work, and I would earnestly pursue my own financial stability, striving to restore the circumstances of our first encounter. However, we must not forfeit our time together. We still needed to indulge in gaming, watch films, and travel. With Mr. Chu's subtle support, this goal did not appear insurmountable. And if that temperamental fellow was willing to assist, it seemed their marital discord had likely dissipated. I believed we all had bright futures ahead. Although this story began rather unexpectedly, the journey was rewarding, and the conclusion was satisfying. That, in itself, was enough. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this tale, feel free to subscribe and show your support. Until next time, farewell.